Today on the curriculum, I got my man, the legend, Chris
Ah,
Gray. Coach Gray, how you doing this morning?
I'm great. Thank you for the intro, man. I don't know if I'm a legend, at least not yet, but thank you.
Hey, in my mind, you are. Um, but a little different, I guess, probably than what we've done is, obviously, if you've watched a few of these, and I know we get into a lot of programming and details and those kind of things, and I think that's important. But what I believe is one of your biggest strengths is just your ability to create relationships with people. I think you're an unbelievable manager of people, whether that be athletes, administration, yourself. I think you're a really, really good coach, at just coaching and building those relationships. So I really want to focus on those kind of things today, not to say that we might not get into some programming and some X's and O's. Um, but as we talk a lot here, I don't really care if you can write the best program in the world. If you can't execute it and develop relationships with your athletes and get the most out of them, it's not going to do too much for you. So I think most impactful for my staff to hear, for me to hear, and for the people that watch the show to hear is really this stuff, because this is it. And to me, it's your strength. So I want to magnify that strength and dive into that stuff as a direction as we kind of talk here. And if we get into some programming, obviously there's nothing wrong with that either. So that being said, why don't we just start right there? As far as your process of doing that, what is your process of getting the most out of your athletes when you have a room full of guys come in there? What are you thinking? What is your process? All right, Coach Gray, it's time to get the most out of these guys today.
I think that it's a loaded question, but it's a great one. Um, when somebody hits the gym floor, and I think this has to permeate everything you do and who you're trying to be. If you want this thing to really go, you got to treat people like human beings, and it can't be a win-loss deal. It can't be a what can you do for me. It can't be a look what I helped you put 700 pounds on your back deal. For me, the first thing it's got to be is like, who are you as a human being? And you may not want to be in here. You may love being in here. You may want everything in between, but I need to find a way, my staff, we need to find a way to connect with you on the most basic human being level and treat you with that level of respect. I think that's got to be 1A, and 1B is still got to be the whole, we got to keep you safe and train you smart and effective, and everything that we learn and read and research about. But ultimately, and this thing is a human being driven profession. It always will be. And we might be the last to be replaced by the robots, but damn, man, you got to treat people the way you want to be treated. And that golden rule will always be the number one driver behind everything that you get your kids to do, your athletes to do, or anybody else that you get a chance to work with.
What do you think is, to me, there's obviously I agree 100%. A lot of it though, and what I notice with coaches, and especially like kind of try hard, doesn't come natural to coaches, is it doesn't feel authentic, as far as what you're talking about, that human relationship. What do you think are some things that you personally do, or that you would advise to other people? Like, this is what makes it an authentic relationship. This is when you just do this, that doesn't strike a kid as authentic. This is what makes it authentic. What do you do for that?
What's important to the kid? And I think that what's important to the kid is going to be, or the athlete, I should say, because just don't matter who you work with, NFL level on down. What's important to that human being on that given day at that given time? You still need to bring this thing full circle to, I want you to have the best year of your career. I need you to train the hardest that you've ever trained today, because we need to get the most out of this time. But not everybody's going to want to come in here and work hard. You're going to have, and we have this at a great magnitude here. We almost have 600 athletes. We have boyfriend and girlfriends breaking up, kids that do well on tests, kids that don't sleep, kids that don't eat, kids that have this going on, athletes that have that going on. What's going on in their life? And I would tell you to find that balance. And this is, I think, one of the hardest things you have to do, because you still have to drive the line of, I'm the coach. This is how things need to be run. We got to have that level of respect, and we can't be friends. But in that same breath, what you would ask your best friend, your wife, your a colleague, genuinely be like, hey, how are you doing today? And I think that is the best question that you can ask somebody, It doesn't need to go into too much depth, and frankly, they don't want to have to share if they don't want to. But if you do that long enough and you genuinely ask and mean it every day, how are you doing today? I think you can go a long damn way, because they're going to find days that, man, they ain't doing that well, and they're going to need you. You're going to find days that you're doing really well, and you can tap into that like, okay, well, let's find a way to push you a little bit more. And I think you're going to find days where, and we have this dialogue a lot with our athletes, and I'll dive into this here in a little bit, of just, I understand you're feeling that way. I need to listen, but understand that in here, I still got to hold your butt accountable. I still got to keep your butt safe. And I still want you to have the best year of your career this year, but it may look and feel different than it has before in the past because of what you're going through, what I'm going through, and everything else in between. So in the most genuine way, I think asking that question of how are you doing today carries a lot of weight, a lot of value, a lot of.
Yeah, I think the Coach Leipold, he calls it barking, and he's always, I think it's a mistake that a lot of coaches make, where it's not necessarily trying to understand the situation, or maybe the why is this kid acting the way he's acting. And I'm just, kids don't respond to barking. They don't respond to you just barking orders out at them. And I think it's probably one of the biggest mistakes I see in coaches that aren't ready to be head strength coaches, or just coaches that really have a hard time sometimes relating to guys. And you can always see it. Like you can see it in the kid's eyes when he's just getting barked at. And that's the difference. And I would say, there are times for barking. There are times that it's just, hey, this is how it's going to be done, and we don't have time to talk about your feelings right now. There's plenty of time for that. But I really think the most effective coaching is exactly what you're saying. It's the intimate coaching of telling them, listen, this is why it's important that you make your goal weight. This is important why you eat the things we tell you. This is important why we're asking you to be here on time and be here 5 minutes earlier than when you're getting here. And diving into the whys, and like you said, making that it's a human relationship. It's not a I'm the boss, you're the employee, you're going to do what I say because I say it. And you make that more of a you make it more humanized when you do things like that. I couldn't agree more. How does that relate to your employees? I mean, it's a obviously probably same concept, but it's a different thing, right? These are your coworkers. These are your people that you got to get a little bit something different out of. How does that work with them?
And you say something different, and I would argue it's the same damn thing to a T, just a different environment or a different realm. They need to know that you care, because they'll be willing to work for you a lot harder if they do. And I forget what I was reading research wise the other day. I think it came out of Northwestern. But surrounding yourself with somebody that's constantly working hard, doing the right things, and being all in, people around that person improve their work, like load, volume, capacity 15%. And then surrounding yourself with somebody that wasn't all in, someone that cut corners, decreased work capacity, volume, and output by 30%. And that 45% swing both applies to your athletes, your colleagues, and everybody in between. It's the they need to know how much you care before they care how much you know. And you will find, and I think you already have found it in your realm, just in your track record at Akron, at Buff, and even Mount, that people that are driven both intrinsically and extrinsically for somebody else, it's that militaristic type of approach. We're all in this together. That's what it's coming down to. And we as a staff have the opportunity to make the biggest impact that we can across these 600 kids. We as a staff need to work together to figure that out best. And we as a staff need to do so on the basis and the foundation of, I really care for you as a human being, and I get the real you every damn day. Some days it's really good and I'm going to pick you up. Some days it's really bad. I'm going to help bring you along. But and I tell my staff this all the time, I wake up and pick up my dog's poop every day, and it humbles me in a hurry. And it reminds me that, listen, we both put our pants on the same way. We do these things the same way. Ain't nobody better than worse We're in this thing together, and we need to always permeate that mindset, because when we do, it's like we got an additional 3 extra head strength coaches in here.
How does that relate to you as far as you talk about getting the most out of other people? And this is one thing that I don't think people talk about rarely at all. But when you're the leader, you better have a plan to get the most out of yourself. And you better have a plan on how to do that on a consistent daily basis, or it's what you just said. If you don't walk the walk, not only are your athletes not going to listen to you, your employees aren't going to listen to you either. What do you do to take care of Chris Gray? What is there to make, what process do you have to make sure that Chris Gray is the best Chris Gray every single day?
Um, Man, I don't do a great job of this. I think I can do a lot better. I think carving out time for yourself is important, but frankly, for me, I am energized. I am charged. I am electric when I'm around other people. So, and you and I have talked about this a little bit. We're off this week. We've got 1 or 2 teams coming in this week to train or cover and do this. I'm gonna be in the office for 9 hours today just because I don't want to get away. I want to be around people. And I know it's different from other people. Other people want to sit back and read and get away and go do whatever it is that you enjoy doing. I think the 2 things I would say to answer that is set goals, both short arc, long arc goals, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, of how you want this thing to look. And what I mean by that is my goal for today, just from a short-term standpoint, I got to work out myself. I want to be there wholeheartedly for our William Smith ice hockey team when they come in here for a half an hour recovery. I have no need to be. Coach said, don't worry about it. Go spend the few days with your family. But for me, that goes a long way with them, and I'll be energized because of it. So I think setting those short arc, long arc goals is hugely and vastly important. And I think really just, I would say, identify who you are. What is vaguely or very important to you that you need to saturate your time with or saturate your people with?
I agree. I think the one thing I would add, and this is one thing I've been really thinking about this question lately, because for me it's like I got a kid on the way, my life's about to get shook up pretty good here, and I'm already processing things of I'm not going to be the guy that becomes half-assed at his job because he's using an excuse of whatever it may be. You insert, for me it's going to be having a newborn, but you insert whatever that is. And to me, it's when I look at the greatest people that I know and I study really successful people, it's not like those people are born without feelings, right? Like, and I'll just use a couple examples. I mean, it's like we still have feelings of we get sad, we get upset, we get tired. Like we have those feelings. I just don't choose to enable them. Like there's mornings that I wake up and I'm like, I have that deep internal feeling like, man, I'm pretty tired today, but I refuse to accept that feeling. And so I don't ever actually, it doesn't ever permeate through me. There's times that I might be upset or sad about something or whatever. You insert the feeling. I
Mm-hmm.
refuse to enable that feeling because it's gonna get in the way of me being the best version of myself that day. And I
Sure.
think that is so massively important for people to understand is one, it's okay to have those feelings.
Okay.
You're not superhuman. Every human being has those feelings, but to me, soft human beings, they enable every one of them. Oh, I'm sad. Oh, I'm tired. Oh, I'm hungry. I need a pizza. I need a beer. Like, and then to me, the best, the most elite human beings, they're just like, what's next? Let's roll. No, I'm
And,
good.
and
Let's
I
get
don't
it.
disagree with you. I think there's a lot of validity to that. I also think there's a lot of value in being, I don't want to say vulnerable, but allowing people to see deeper into who you are.
For sure.
And what I mean by that is, yes, and you're right. And I think some of the most impressive people in human history that have that ability to withstand those challenges and adversity at a greater level are really impressive. But some of the best leaders in history are those who were able to not just drive the mindset and the ideal of why we're doing this, but had people to connect with them on a deeper level.
Yep.
And I think there's some element, and where you draw that line, I got no idea. But having my student athletes here see me dragging my wife, and God love her, to all their events. She's been on the flying for 6 weeks in a row. Yet when she lands, an hour after landing, we're going to see a hockey game.
Yep.
We're going to rush the field for the women's soccer team after they go to the Final Four. I think having them see you good, bad, happy, sad within reason is really valuable. Not because it affirms
inclusion. You're including them into your life. I think that's the important thing. Like
yes.
you want them to feel like they know your dog's name. You know, like I want that. I want them to be a part of my daughter's life. When I have a death in the family, I share that with them, and I share that with how valuable life is, and how to appreciate those things. I think you're beyond correct. I mean, if you don't include them in your life, it's what you said. It's not a human relationship.
Right.
Because that's what you do. Like, if Chris Gray, when that phone rings, I don't sit there and put a filter on or a guard on. I talk to Chris Gray. That's a human relationship. I'm gonna express that inclusion. So yeah,
I think it's just finding the line for that
balance,
individual.
right? Yeah.
Right. I think, and I'll tell you this, I think you do a better job than I do of just being like, let's go. This is great. We're going to have a great damn day. I'll tell you, I'll try to find a way differently within myself to genuine who I am. We'll have a great damn day. I'm going to express it differently. I'm going to try to bring people along differently, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I think that's just, like you said, how can we connect on a deeper level daily that will drive what we're trying to do better?
Since you probably had the best, I mean, well, I guess background. Let me back up for those who obviously the listeners don't know this, but Coach Gray came out to Buffalo this summer and spent probably 2 weeks with us, 1 week straight, and then kind of on and off a little bit. But I've never seen a coach come in and just demand, be accepted, uh, and just really do as good of a job coaching as you did in that week, that day, that first day you were here, the connections you were able to make. Like I said, the demand you had on the athletes. It's very rare. I haven't seen it before. So we all have first days in this industry. We all, whether it's a director, an assistant, an intern, everybody has day one. And I think a lot of people do it wrong. And sometimes when you do day one wrong, it's hard to overcome day one. It might take a while to get past that when you come in, and whether your hair's on fire, or you're way super reserved, or you're not yourself, or whatever it may be. What advice would you give, just general, that would fit into any of those realms? Director, intern, assistant. What would be a piece of advice that if you're talking on the phone to someone who's about to start a job tomorrow, this is what you say to them?
Build respect for a human being and do what you're there paid to do and why we do this thing. Go coach. And I think those two have to permeate every action that you take. Build respect for yourself, for them, and for each other. Because by doing that, you're just going to have a breeding ground for success where people feel safe to fail and have no problem trying and pushing and going to those points, because they know people around them will respect them regardless, and coach your ass off. And I think those two things, and again, I'm doing my best to keep this as simple as possible because I think there's umpteen million things you can do. But I remember my first day here, I came in and set a standard for a pull-up test. Female soccer player came in, she had a 13, 14 pull-ups that she had to get to, okay? Everyone was, the standard had not been set of what an actual pull-up had looked like. Told her no, breaks down crying. So in the back of my head, I'm thinking, man, what am I doing here? We went from coaching and being around NFL guys to now I have a sophomore soccer player in tears because I told her that these pull-ups are not good enough. And did my best to complete that circle. So finish testing, come back and talk to her and say, hey, listen, I understand this is a different standard than what you've had before. I respect the hell out of you for still working your ass off for me. I will go fight for you with your staff and explain what this is going to look like. I'm not going to change your score because it's the fair but not equal, right? I'm not changing this thing because of X. This is who we're going to be. I respect you for who you are and the work you put forth. And I will go fight for you with your staff to ensure that we are doing right by you. What I ask from you going forward is you work your butt off to come meet me where we're going to be. And to this day, this female student athlete, we still joke about that at that moment. Still joke about that moment, but I think that it still was on the basis of I'm going to respect who you are as a human being, what you're putting forth, but I'm still going to coach your butt up for what's acceptable and what's not. And I think if you build it on those two, you're going to be all right.
The why, yeah, and that's part that goes back to what you talked about inclusion. I think there's so many coaches that even some, there's some coaches that don't know why they're doing what they're doing. Those are the bad coaches. There's some coaches that know why they're doing what they're doing, but they don't express it. And to me, those are the okay coaches. But the best coaches are the ones that have a why, a very strong why, and they share that with their athletes so that their athletes feel like they're, and that's part of even the book you're reading right now, right? Is making sure everybody understands why we're doing what we're doing. Why is this a standard? Because if they don't understand why it's the standard, they're not going to feel like they're part of the standard. You want your athletes to feel like in some way they decided what the standard was, right?
So I guess I would challenge that thought is, so for those that don't know, are they really bad coaches?
That don't know their why?
Correct. Are they bad coaches, or have they yet to mature? Have they yet to have great mentorship or leadership?
I guess I'm specifically talking about like a head strength coach. Which if you're a head strength coach and don't know your why, then yeah, you're a bad coach.
So,
But if you're a young coach, I agree with you. I agree.
And here's where I'll say this: is that so I was at my first full-time head job, and I was coaching football and a strength coach, and I was all over the spectrum, and I didn't have a defined why. At this level, I was split between being an offensive line coach, recruiting, helping out with program ops, a strength coach for football, but also with frills, helped out with some other programming and odds and ends for the other 23 sports. I didn't know why I was doing all of those things. I didn't have direction for any particular one. I knew why I coached. I wanted to make a difference and an impact, but I didn't have why and depth. I would say I had great width and vision at that point, but less depth into like why being this type of person or this type of coach in this spectrum or this field is going to make a huge difference. And I thought I was lacking in the mentorship and the leadership standpoint at that point in time. But that's why I guess I would challenge that direct, definitive classification of they're bad. I don't think I was great. I think I could have been a whole hell of a lot better. Shoot, I still think I can be a whole heck of a lot better. Yeah, right. But I would argue and challenge that thought process of then maybe as a strength culture or a strength coaches culture, we can do a better job. And this is where I think you excel by having things like this. And it's not just an NFL guy, an NFL guy, an NFL guy, an NFL guy, a doctor. Because still to the core, while those guys are awesome and they're cool and those ladies are the cool, like Rachel Balkovec and for the Yankees, awesome. But from a gross population standpoint, who makes up the most people in this profession right now? High school, Division III, just because there's more of them. So what can we do to help to continue this? Because frankly, we see a product that's sometimes further along the road or further down the road that requires us to correct more or correct less because of how good or how I'm at a loss for words, how good that person is as a coach, as a leader, as a mentor to those youth. So to me, I don't want to classify, and I'm going to challenge you on this thought process, as someone is bad if they don't know their why. I will challenge them and say they're bad if they're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
If they want to make an impact but don't know how to make a good impact yet, I think that's where we as a culture can get better.
Need to get better for sure.
Yeah.
And we are. But that is a big area where, and that's the whole YouTube, Instagram,
The whole thing.
social media presence of that enables a lot of that. I want to get into, and this is, I don't know, this is a conversation because I agree with it, but you said you want to create an environment where people feel safe to fail. And I'm going to talk specifically with employees, interns, and I can remember this as long as I am. I try to create that environment. I try very hard to create an environment where everybody on my staff, whether you're a day one intern or you're my longest time employee, where people feel comfortable to bring ideas to the table, where it's not like oh shit, there comes Coach Sleeve. Oh, everybody be, I don't want that to be the environment which we work in. Um, and I think bar none, it's definitely, in my opinion, it's the best way to do it. It makes it more comfortable for everybody. It's just my natural personality. However, I do feel like sometimes people feel too safe to fail, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I've had interns in the past do things that I would never dream to do when Tommy Moffitt was addressing me and so it's like, for me, what is that balance? Because a piece of it is, once again, it's what I believe is most beneficial for the athletes, for the players, you name it.
Sure.
But at the same time, sometimes it creates that other end of it to where it's like, man, am I doing a disservice by giving them this much leash, or giving them, and me and you actually talked about this before, giving them this much room to fail, because they're not going to have that other places. They're not going to get to do this. So am I, as a leader, am I setting them up for a form of failure, because what they are experiencing here is probably not going to be what they experience somewhere else. It's probably not going to be this much of an environment where you can fail safely.
Sure. Yes is the shallow answer to that. Obviously, yes, you can give, I think, too much safety in terms of. I think it goes back to your communication, though, with your, and I'm going to digress on something else, but I think it goes back to your communication with both your staff and your athletes, and what's acceptable, what you're trying to get out of that session or that experience, or that, listen, if we're going to tell our kids we're going to test and we're at max and we're going to put X on the bar, hey, and we've built a culture where failing is acceptable, great. If I don't get it, I get that, but understand where we need to go from here. If I put an intern in charge of the warm-up, hey, it's just going to be the warm-up today. Here's where I want to see you. I need to lay out the confines to a certain extent and give them criteria, goals, and subsets to obtain or to strive for, like I would in my own job. And sometimes I think we as heads, as leaders, say in our head, you're going to go run the warm up, go do it. And they don't know any different than what they've seen you do. They don't know any different. And they don't have all the experiences that you're drawing from and everywhere you've been. They haven't seen the culture at LSU, but you know it. So your immediate reaction is like, man, that doesn't fly at SEC. But they don't know that. So is that on them to figure out? Is it on you to tell them about and communicate on the front end, the back end? Or have you created a culture where that just permeates and is felt throughout? And I think that there's no one in particular that has to be. I think it would just go back to who you're trying to be as a leader.
Yeah, no, I think but that's the point, is if you're going to create that environment, you need to over communicate. And it's what I try to do. Now, there's certainly times that I don't do it enough, like but you have to over communicate. if you're going to give them if you're going to give them that much room to fail, or that kind of safety net to fail, you also need to give them some. And that's an unbelievable point. You need to give them some of your experiences and prepare them for that. And I'll give you an example. Is like, this summer we had a really good intern, and he's doing a good job demanding his racks. You say, okay, you're going to go warm up this next group. And really what it is it's a player led warm up. You're just kind of monitoring it. Okay, well, 20 minutes later, I find out that he's out there MFing everybody and making guys do up downs, which is probably what I would do because that's what he saw me do before.
Correct.
But I never sat there and was like, now listen, if things go south, it's not your place to do that yet. Not that it's not the right thing to do and to uphold the standard, but just in your position, that's not the intern
Right.
position to do those kind of things. So I think it's what you just said. Is if you're going to create that environment where your employees feel safe to bring ideas to the table, safe to fail, you better really do a good job of communicating with those employees, with those interns on what the standard is. And then you got to be able to have those hard, because a lot of people can't have those conversations where they pull someone in their office and go, hey man, so this is, we got to do this differently, this, and you better be willing to have those conversations as well.
Yep. No, I completely agree with you on that. And we've had our fair share with interns here and elsewhere where, man, just if you're going to go spot, if you're going to do this is what it needs to look like, man. And you don't talk about it all. You don't have time to talk about it all. You just, hey, go grab that guy, go pick this guy up. Go. And the next thing we know, we're letting the bar stop on a bench press. And now the kid's safety's in jeopardy, right? We don't keep the bar moving. And I said, yeah, is that on me? Yeah. I can be frustrated. We can go crush this and squash this right now because we're not going to get this guy hurt. But this is on me for not communicating enough on how this thing should look and feel. And
I think it's so important too, though, because I mean, failure is, how important is failing? How important is failure? And that's why, I mean, I tell interns all the time, don't chase the logo. A lot of your best opportunities to grow as an actual coach is going to be at small level schools, because you're going to have a chance to fail. And there's a lot of things that, the stories we all tell about the most impactful moments in our life are typically things that we grew from failure. And if you don't have a chance to fail, if you don't have a chance to bring a bad idea to the table, it's going to be hard to bring a good one to the table. If you don't have a chance, what makes me a good coach, I think, is all the experience that I've had of being a bad one, all the bad things I've done that I've learned from, and I've been open and I've owned, help make me a better mentor, help make me a better leader, help make me a better coach, help make me better at at coaching Olympic progressions. It's all the mistakes that I've made, but also being open enough to say, okay, that was an error, that was an issue, that was a failure. But I think it's so important because, I mean, if you don't learn from failure, what else do you learn from?
uh, it's a great question. No, there are a lot of things run through my head, but I think that's you have to be humble enough to learn too. And I think that's sometimes when we get caught up is, oh, it just didn't work out today, but we'll go back to the well again tomorrow. And while you were going on that tangent, all I could think of was Churchill. Again, I'm a history guy, and he's one of my favorite four. But lost a buddy in the Cuban American and almost died. Came back, wanted to go to war, do it again. Went to war, became a prisoner of war, escaped, ran away, basically lived on his own and almost died behind enemy lines. Finally made it back and decided as a prime minister he was going to kill 10, 20,000 to save potentially 300,000. Made bad mistakes and decisions all throughout, but ultimately, while he was in the minority sometimes, still found a way to potentially save the world as we know it today. And I think it requires you to be humble, reflective, but also potentially sometimes be in the minority and say what is best for the greater good of everybody that we work for. Staff, athletes, everybody included.
There's no doubt. And there's so many facets to that as well. There's so many facets to that. What do you think, especially being in the different situations you've had with private sector and where you are now? And I mean, your job really is just to overcome challenges on a daily basis, whether it be financial, whether it be administratively, whether it be whatever it may be, but you're constantly having to overcome challenges, and that's what makes you great, especially at that level. The ones that that separate you know people that are MAC level strength coaches, the good ones from the bad ones. A lot of times are the guys that can make things happen, that can overcome the daily challenges of that we all face. We all have them. What do you think is your biggest asset when it comes to dealing with adversity, or what is your, I guess, your process in overcoming? I guess it could be any kind of challenge.
I think it's immediate resort back to core values and being a creative problem solver. And I think those in that order, particularly, are who are you still trying to be? Right. So we don't have the resources to buy new things, buy this, and this, and this, and this. So, core value standpoint, how is this decision, or what does this decision mean in terms of who I am trying to be as a person and what I am trying to embody our kids with? And then in that same breath, how can we creatively solve this problem to make things better for everybody within the scope of core values? I think that's just there's no, I'm trying to look around to see like things that we've done here to spend $20 out of my own pocket to make these boards for bench. And I brought a case of alcoholic beverages over to our one of our coaches to help me build them because I'm not very good handyman, but found a way to spend time with somebody, build a relationship, build rapport, spend money out of my own pocket, but we made things better for all of our athletes in here for $20. And
$10 and the beer was 10.
Something along those lines. I meant to say adult beverages, but well, whatever. We're beyond that point now. But I think the decision in that was, okay, how do we make things better for our athletes here? Is it worth spending X amount of money for something real, or can we make our own that's safe and effective and efficient? Is this going to help me be a really awesome person by spending time with somebody else and asking a favor of them? And what can I give back to them in return? Not just a gift in terms of the beer, but what can I give them that will signify the importance it is to me, to us, to we, that they're going to want to not just do it for today, but do it every time I see them. I think it goes down to what we do and why we do it and why we're so effective is, I guess it goes back to time, right? Your most valuable asset is your time, how you spend it and where you spend it. I think you said that earlier when you said, I want to get a chance to go home and see my daughter and spend time with her. People will recognize the genuine time that you spend with them, on them, for them. And I think the long tangent over the last 34 minutes to answer your first question, the second question, third question about personal, staff, and athlete. Can you give them genuine, undivided attention in your time as much as possible where it's applicable?
I think I underlined that word 3 times, and I've talked about this many times before, but when I look at my group of people in my life that I've kept very close to me throughout that have lasted from whatever the high school relationships I have, college, my stops along the way, it's unintentional that those people all happen to be wonderfully genuine people. And it's so funny because like it hit me at my wedding is a lot of those people in different segments of my life, they didn't know each other. But I had 9 groomsmen and I had 17 of my closest friends at my wedding in Spain, and I was just sitting there looking at them all. One of the days we were at a beach in Spain, and I'm like, these dudes are all. It's like they've been together their entire lives, is what you would have thought, and the majority of them didn't even know each other. And I'm just sitting there, I'm thinking like, how? And then it's like they're all just genuine, authentic human beings, and so they all just get along, and it's who I try to keep closest to me. But I think the majority of your problems in life can be solved by just being a genuine, authentic human being, meaning what you say, saying what you mean, being authentic, being genuine. Those things can probably overcome any adversity, any challenge you could ever possibly have in your life. It's why I keep you in my corner, coach, because you're such a genuine dude, and you're good looking as well. So I mean, um,
I just try to get a smile out of Coach Hayes. That's all.
it's not always easy, you know. Coach Ice gets cranky every once in a while. um, we talked about this the other day. I don't know. Someone asked me something like a couple weeks ago. Was just like, you know, with the way you've come up and not being able to work under someone for a really long time, like what's allowed you to gain your knowledge or whatever. And I started thinking about, you know, like my mentors and like, no, I didn't get a lot of time to spend under one specific mentor, but I'm like, dang, I really have a lot of mentors, a lot of people I call and would consider mentors to me. And so then I kind of started thinking about, you know, like what I've done well, I think to learn all the things from them. I've been a really good mentee. Like I've done things that have made me a good mentee to those people and make them want to share their knowledge with me. And I was just walking these guys through that thought process in my head of a lot of times you're going to get out, you're going to create a good mentor based off your ability to be a good mentee. So in your eyes, who are some of your mentors, and what specifically do you feel, because I see a lot of that in you as well, what do you feel that you do well to be a good mentee for people to want to share so much with you?
Whew. So for me, and I think at least my path is very unique in this sense that I came up coaching football for the first 6 years of this career, as well as strength. So a lot of my mentors, at least early on, were football coaches,
Yep.
head coaches, assistant coaches, coordinators that we learned how to problem solve 11v11 and formation and subset. It just, uh, to me, that was really cool. And I tried to apply some of those theories in the weight room through trial and error when I was a young upcoming coach. Once getting into the field a little bit more, I spent a lot of free time at Villanova, where Jake Cox was for a minute, and learned an awful lot. And I think what made, and this is a really good reflective question, I guess. I haven't thought about it much. What made me a good mentee was the ability to listen and execute and truly decipher what's being said to me and what does it need to look like. And I guess it goes back to, I wanted to be communicated to at first. I wanted to be over communicated. And then we all get that feeling of like, all right, yeah, I know my stuff, dude. Like, let me do it. But still trying to fight that feeling and continue to listen. Humbling yourself that you don't know and you think you know, you want to go, but still continuing to do your best to listen and take more in. Got to Cincinnati, and I thought Joe Walker was incredible as a head strength guy. And while I learned more from him from a managerial side of things, how you treat people, how you treat staff, how you treat training room, same deal. I think you got to listen. And there were things that I rushed. I want to coach. I want to do this. I want to do this. I think I could have done a better job at Cincinnati of listening more. But I still think what made me a decent mentee was the ability to listen and execute. And frankly, then going to the private sector and working with both high school and NFL athletes, and then coming here, being a good mentee, being a good human being, is still having the ability to listen. And I think no matter who you are, you can always listen. And when you want to get really smart and intelligent, you'll listen, and then you'll ask questions. And I think for those out there that lack that depth now, sometimes still make statements. And I would encourage myself, so I'll turn back and watch this here later today, to continue to listen more, to ask more questions. How are you doing today? and to try to refrain as much as possible when it's applicable to make less statements unless they're needed.
Love it. I think this is when I've talked to Heiss about this too, as I always kind of talk about his future and his aspirations, especially where you are. I mean, you've done such a good job of making that place better than you found it, and you've invested so much into where you are. Yet I know you have very high aspirations. What do you do, or what is your advice, or what is your recommendation for somebody to I guess doing what you're doing right now, right? Which is investing everything you have and being all in where your feet are, but still pursuing and having aspirations. What is that balance of quote unquote loyalty? What is that balance of where should my mindset be as far as how do I attack every day with this is where I am, but knowing this is where I want to be and end up?
Sure. Um, so, and I think 4 years ago, I really had the epiphany of like, why are we really doing this thing, man? Like, and again, we all say impact and this and stronger and all that. And for me, I think the really easy answer to that question is we go back to we're human being driven. And if I were to die tomorrow, how are the 600 athletes, the 23 head coaches, everybody here that I've had an impact on, truly, how would they feel and would they show up? Do I always have aspirations for grandeur? I would challenge everybody. We should.
Right.
Right. Otherwise, we're going to be status quo. And it goes back to that Northwestern study where we start having a reduction in output, performance, and everything in between. But there were times where I was, and a young coach, I was applying for jobs and throwing things out there. And I hope that, I want to get that, I want to go there. It looks really a lot better there. The reality is, it takes one of these 600 to be the next president, to be the next freaking person that cures cancer or changes the damn world. And even if I have a small fractional 0.5% impact on that person, I've done right by myself, by my family, by that person, and potentially whoever else they impact. And man, would I love to coach at every different level. And do I think in the most modest sense I'm a stud? Yeah, I do. But I feel like that mindset that permeates me still has to be humble enough to be all in where I'm at. Because let me tell you this, and I mean this wholeheartedly and honestly, I love this place and I love these people an awful lot. I love Cincinnati and I love those people in that place an awful lot. I did at Villanova. And for the week and a half, 2 weeks I was out at Buffalo, I loved you, that place, and those people a lot. And wherever I go and intern or just go visit, and I'm all in because you don't know the interaction you're going to have. When I went to visit you, Albany, and Coach Barber and those, and just in passing, see a kid, talk to him, hey, how are you doing? It goes a long damn way. And I think if we as people and less as strength coaches can do that, we're going to have a really freaking awesome place to live. And I think regardless of where you go or what you do, if we got a pretty badass place to live, there are going to be a lot of happy people, man.
Well, Coach, I'm going to wrap up by saying that personal challenge from Coach Chris Gray on this Monday morning is anybody listening, what can you do? What can you do to just be a better human being today? What can you do to chase some authenticity, to be a little more genuine with your athletes? What can you do to impact the world in a little more positive nature? And sounds like our advice from Coach Chris Gray is do those things. You're gonna get pretty far in this industry. Would you say that's right?
I think you'd get far in life.
And that's important, right?
It's we talked before this. Our soccer team went to the Final Four yesterday, and they set a motto for the year that was higher love, right? And that we have capacity for a whole hell of a lot more. And they said, we're going to embody this for this season. So I went down before the game yesterday. I said, I want to challenge you. Don't just do it for the damn season. Do it for a lifetime. We have capacity to be a whole hell of a lot greater. And if we stop setting our damn goals so low, we'll achieve a whole hell of a lot more. Do it, embody it for a lifetime. And wherever you go, whatever you do, we'll be pretty good, man. So I appreciate you, though.
I appreciate you. And as my friend Stevie Winwood once said, bring me to higher love.
That's it, babe. That's it.
Hey, Coach, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking your morning off. And anybody listening who doesn't know Coach Gray, reach out to him. He's a guy you want in your corner. He's a guy to talk to for sure. And he's very open. So, anybody, if you reach out to him, he will get back to you. He'll do those kind of things, but he's a great guy to have in your corner. So, Coach, not only are you a great coach, but you're an even better friend to me. And you know that Anna and I appreciate having you guys in our lives. And thank you for taking your time this morning with us.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
All righty.